What's up, guys? It is Lane with Bedford Acres Christian Church. I am the worship minister here in Paris, Kentucky, and today I wanted to take you on a daily walk through what it's like to be a worship minister, but it's more or less what I have to do throughout the week. So just to kind of give you guys an insight on what we do as worship ministers in order to make Sunday happen. So let's go. So one of the main things that we do is, that I do, is usually every Monday I try to get in here about 8:30, somewhere around there, and start my daily routine. So my daily routine generally consists of coming in, turning on my computer. Obviously that's really hard to do, but I try to edit the videos from yesterday, which would be Sunday, and get those all uploaded and all of that. Usually the editing process can take anywhere from 2 hours to 5 to 6 hours. It really just depends on what all you have to do, but that's including the upload times and all the stuff you have to put in and all that CCLI information and all of that stuff. But your software that you use, it's really up to you what you want to use. It's not got to be something that's super fancy. I use iMovie a lot, but there are a lot of things legally that you have to do in order to make sure that you're not going to get copyright issues, and you're really protecting your church whenever you're doing all these things. So it's really something really important to remember, how to register your music and all that stuff, which can be a totally separate video. Yeah, so I'll come in and I'll start editing these videos and editing them down and do the uploads and all that, which isn't terribly hard, but it is time consuming. It's very, very time consuming. But I'll kind of go ahead and show you what that looks like. Alright, so one of the big things is you want to make sure that whenever you pull this up, you've got your video source that you've brought from that Sunday, and you're going to just put it in here. But one of the main things I really like to do is I like to have an intro and outro video. I created this on a website, and then this is our outro video. But pretty much down here is where you're going to see everything. Sometimes, I mean, this is easy. It's just drag and drop, and you can control your volumes and everything. But one of the big things that happens is, for some reason, whenever I upload it, my sound is shifted. So if I'm sitting here playing or singing or somebody's talking, it's lagging, and I have to detach that audio, find exactly where it is, and put it all in there. So once we get over into the sermon portion, you really want to make sure that everything is really clean and something that people are interested in watching. And then bam, put your outro video, and then that's pretty much that as far as editing goes. Now with that said, that's not just the only thing that we edit. I personally like to make every transition during the service, the sermon, the service, anything in regards to that Sunday, as clean and effortless as possible. So I create our own transition videos. Generally for every sermon series, we'll use the same transition video, but when it comes down to that, finding the video footage, finding the images, finding the things that you're going to need in order to do that. As far as music goes, with the transition videos, I write all that myself. I'll record all that myself. I don't want any copyright problems there. I'll usually just write the music myself, record it, and then take it back into this software and edit it all down. And then I'll go up and upload it whenever I'm doing the sermon and whatnot. One thing that really is important is staff meetings and any other kind of meeting that you're going to have. But the staff meetings, we have them weekly, usually consists of everybody in the staff coming in, going over their plans, what last week looked like, what is next week going to look like, what do we need to do to prepare, etc., etc. But another important thing is, planning the year, everything that's going on in the following months, following weeks. There's a lot that goes on in these meetings. And as a worship minister, it's really important because you're not just playing on a Sunday morning, you're playing everything. So you have to know, do you need audio visual? Do you need a band? Do you need just you? Making sure that the music's printed out in time. There's so many factors that go into it that a lot of people just kind of look it over and say, well, I'll get to it when I get to it. That's a really bad frame of mind, especially whenever it comes to your worship team. I've got 18 people in our worship team, to include the tech team, the audio visual. All of those people are relying on you as the worship minister to be able to do your job correctly, to get the music to them in time. I personally like to get the music out. If I get a sermon series, I will go ahead and vet all the songs. I will go ahead and compare every song that we're going to sing with scripture. I'll pick the set list. I'll build the set list. I will make sure everybody has the music generally a month in advance, so that whenever it comes time for our weekly rehearsal, which is exactly what it is, it's not practice, it is rehearsal. There's no need to have a band coming in learning a song midweek that they're going to have to play on Sunday. They should already know that music. So if you don't get the music to them in time, then your rehearsal turns into a practice. And rehearsals should be utilized for strictly going over the little details, any accents that you want to add or take away, whatever that looks like. That's another portion of it, is getting the music out in time. So what does that look like? What does getting the music out in time look like? So these are your plans. We use Planning Center. It's really, really effective. It's you can add anybody that you want. You can add people. You can remove people. The folks on your worship team can add blockout dates. Say they're going on vacation and they can't be here for 2 or 3 weeks. They can actually add blockout dates, which will not allow you to schedule them. You've got all your songs here. This is pretty much what a Sunday would look like. It's got the announcement, the countdown, the first song, welcome, fellowship, 3 songs, communion, offering, message, and then invitation. So, but the thing that's nice about this is you can come here, click this, and it's going to give you your arrangement options. We're doing this in the key of E flat, but you can pull this up right here and then print it off, which is really nice because everybody on your worship team has access to getting this as soon as you send them the email. It tells them what key it's in right here. It'll tell them E flat, C, G, G, whatever the chord progression is going to be in, it's going to tell them. So they're going to get this. Utilizing this and making sure that your team is on point and making sure that your team is aware of what's going on. If you don't do this, not necessarily Planning Center, but if you're not getting out the information to your worship team prior to 3 or 4 days before Sunday, you may want to reevaluate your plan. The caliber of musicians that you have might be amazing, but it's still a little messed up to not be able to plan this in advance. And it can't always happen that way, but if you don't, you need to reevaluate. So usually our senior pastor will get his sermon notes to me on a Tuesday, Wednesday at the very latest. That way I can go up and put all the slides in. So there's a lot of things that people don't understand about worship leaders. It's not usually just come in on Monday, work through Friday, and all you do is play your guitar and just sing in your office. That would be amazing, but that's just not what it is. There's so much more that goes into it that people need to realize that there's things that have to happen in order to make Sunday morning happen. There's so much more that I'm about to take you into that happens for Sunday to actually go in and be able to come in and worship. So, as a worship minister, you're picking songs, you're leading the band, you're up there singing, and doing all these things, but there's so much more behind the scenes that people don't see. And so we're going to let you see that. Okay, so now here we are in the sanctuary. This is where the magic happens, which, the congregation, this is where they all meet. This is where everything that you've been doing throughout the week gets put into practice. So, as you can see behind me, our stage, we don't have all the lights on and stuff right now, but the stage design, that's one of the big things that we do as worship ministers. How do you set up an atmosphere that is worshipful? How do you set it up to where when people come in, they feel invited, they feel welcomed, they feel comfortable, confident in the purpose of worshiping God, because there are a lot of key factors that can make or break a Sunday morning worship. There's a lot of things that can affect if people are going to worship or not. Now, you can't force people to raise their hands. You can't force people to sing super loud, but there are things that you can do to help encourage those things, help encourage people to break out of their shell and meet the Maker that they love and that they want to worship. And that's the thing, is with being a worship minister, you're leading people into worship. You're leading people into that throne room and giving them the opportunity to really meet with God. Lighting has a lot to do with that. Stage has a lot to do with that. The atmosphere just in the congregation has a lot to do with that. There's so many different things that people don't really think about. They're real quick to complain about it, but they don't really think about the work that goes into it and the purpose behind all these things. So that's one of the major things. So if you look at the stage right now just looks like, a bunch of instruments just kind of up there. The drums are on a riser, but when we're doing worship, there's all kinds of different colors and stuff like that. People will have their opinions about that kind of stuff, and that's okay. They're welcome to those. But the reason we do it is for the ambience. It's for allowing people to kind of come into that sense of worship and allow them to meet with God comfortably. All right, so now you got the tech booth. The tech booth is for all the people that work a lot behind the scenes. They do a lot of things that virtually nobody sees. The audio, the visual, the lighting, all of the other components that go into worship, this is where they are. They are up above everybody in our sense. Everybody's a little bit elevated, and it allows them to be able to see everything that's going on in the church. They can adjust everything as they need to, and so it's a really important characteristic of this ministry. But what does that mean for the worship leader? The worship leader should know how to do everything that's up here. You should know how to do the video. You should know how to do the slides. You should know how to do the audio, because you have to be the guy or the girl that's training the people that are coming up here to take these positions as a volunteer, to come up here, spend their time doing it. And if you don't train them, then it's not up to them to have to learn it, on their own. You should be the one training them. So in the world of video, this is kind of what we have set up. We have our switchboard, we have our camera switcher. These two things obviously work together in order to make all of this happen. So we have two people up here on every Sunday that are working diligently to provide that live stream for us. One person is usually over the other, just kind of giving them direction. They come to our rehearsals so they can make all their notes, who sang what, at what point, where do we put the cameras, where do we switch them, how does this all come into play. So we've got 3 cameras set up in the sanctuary, and they're working with 3 different cameras, and the switching and all of that is extremely important because it's going to make or break the flow of worship via social media. So if I'm just up here messing around and this is what everybody sees in this screen, and I just decide I'm going to do that, I'm going to go here, and I want to, oh gosh, what am I doing? But see how confusing that can be? You don't want that. The thing is that if you don't know this stuff as a worship minister, and you don't know that this is what's going to be fed, and I'm going to go here, and I want to make sure that my camera feed is going to be prepared to go to the keyboardist next, and then I want to switch it and fade it into the keyboardist. If you don't know that stuff, you're just going to set these folks up for failure. Ultimately, you can become a stumbling block. So there's so many factors that go into all this stuff. All right, so now we get into all of the things that we have to put in for slides and videos and music and arrangements and all that other stuff. This is probably the time consumer. So we use Propresenter. Propresenter is a software that allows you to build all these projections and things. And then on this side over here, this is where our set list and order of worship would be. It's got the announcement slides, which if you click on, and then it'll show you, you can click on all of these things, and they'll just start going through the loop. So whenever you're actually going live on a Sunday morning, you can play this, have background music and all that stuff playing at the same time. And then you get into the songs. The songs are set up. You can have your primary background slide. You have to decide on what kind of background slide you want to go with. Generally, I try to think of, okay, what's the song talking about? Is there something that kind of corresponds with it? Is there something that maybe goes along with it a little better than just some random background slide? So there's all these things that kind of go into that. And then you've got your sermon. Our sermon notes, obviously, everything changes weekly. These are definitely going to change every week. Now, we are in a series right now, so I keep the series background the same, but the thing to remember is the slides that you're going to have up there, I like to keep it, fresh, so that if he's talking and he's not necessarily on a scripture, he's just doing his regular sermon portion, I'll have a background up that is just the background of the sermon series. So whatever that looks like. And then every time he hits a key point, it'll pop up the key point. It'll pop up the scripture, because some people they might forget their Bible. They might not own a Bible. So having it on the screen is an option for folks. This is probably one of the more time-consuming things as far as just preparations go. If you get really persistent at it, you could probably have it done in 2 hours, 3 hours. So it's really up to you on what you're going to do. I like to go a little over the top. Sometimes I like to make it, like I said, as professional as possible. You want it to be something that is appealing, something attractive, something that's not a distraction, but it's like, oh wow, that you put a lot of effort into it. And the best thing is that 99% of the people are never going to notice the details. But if you know what you're doing and you put the time in and you appreciate what you're doing, that counts. And so, but they're not going to notice all the little details that make it great. They're going to notice all the little details or the big details that make it terrible. Putting the time and the effort in is extremely important. So that's one of the primary things that I'm doing. To kind of show you what that looks like here. All right, so audio is a big thing. Obviously, if any of this is off in any way, it can cause a huge, big, catastrophic mess out there. And there's so much that goes on back here. I don't have time to put it all in this video, but as a worship leader, you need to know what's going on primarily with the sound. If you don't know what's going on, you need to get with your sound guy or girl and give them the opportunity to teach you what they're doing, because this is what can make or break an entire service. If there's feedback in the middle of just this really powerful moment in the music and everybody's worshiping, and then bam, all of a sudden something feeds back really bad, this is where the knowledge needs to come in. Because if you don't know anything about this, you need to really pay attention to what they're doing, and you need to learn, because your sound guy or girl or whoever, they're gonna need a day off. They're gonna need to maybe be able to volunteer in other areas. Having the opportunity for them to kind of take a break is important, and it's your job to train people on this. It's not necessarily all of their job. Okay, they're volunteering their time to do this. You're a staff member, whether that be part, full-time, doesn't matter. They need to be willing to give you the opportunity also to teach and train other folks. So that's really important. Okay, so now that we've gone through some of those things, what does it look like when you're trying to recruit or mentor, or what does that look like? So I do things a little different. I'm prior military, so I do things a lot different. I have a interview process, an audition process. Some of the members on our worship team have been on this worship team for the better part of 15 years. So my job is to protect them. My job is to protect the worship team, to protect the interests of the worship team, to protect the people that have been here doing this, putting their time in, doing their efforts. There's so many things that you're guarding. If you just let somebody come in that says, "Oh yeah, I've sang in a church for 20 years," but then you give them no time to audition, you don't talk to them, you don't get to know them, you don't know if they're saved or not, there's just a whole lot of room for error. So I set things up a little different. If someone shows an interest in joining the worship team, I personally will sit down with them, have an interview process. I want to hear their testimony. I want to hear where they're from. I want to hear how long they've been saved. Are they a member of the church? That's another stipulation. Have you been baptized? Have you, there's a lot of things that I need to know before I start scheduling you to play. There's a guidelines thing that we go over, that people need to know. Hey, this is what we expect of you, and this is what you can expect of us. So that there is an open, clear communication, so that if an issue does arise, it's easier for you as a worship leader to go back and be like, hey, you remember that sit down we had? This is how we're going to have to handle this situation because you agreed and I agreed in our meeting that we initially had. It just makes it a lot cleaner than having to pretty much go into an argument that involves multiple people on the worship team when it can just be you and that individual. There is an audition process. So I've picked songs for male vocalist, female vocalist, guitarist, drummers, bassist, individual songs that I want to hear them play based on one's a fairly easy song and one's a fairly hard song. And I want to hear what they do with that song. Now, on audition day, generally what will happen is they'll come in and they can warm up, they can take their time, they can do whatever, and then I want to hear the two songs in the email that I sent to you. You can bring other songs if you want, but those two songs I'm going to hear, simply because I know the skill set that it's going to need to perform those songs. The other thing too is giving the people the time to practice those songs. So if someone says, yeah, I want to do it, I'm going to send them a welcome email. It's going to tell them about the worship team, tell them a little bit about myself, tell them about the direction of the church, and then give them 2 weeks from that date to have time to practice. Now, what they do with those 2 weeks is on them. It's not on you, it's on them. And so during those 2 weeks, if they don't do anything with it and then they come to rehearsal and they just look like a plastic bag full of garbage, that's not your fault. You've given them the time. But the thing is giving people ample time to be able to rehearse and practice so that when audition time comes, they're prepared. Another thing that we go over is before I schedule them, we're going to have our interview process, you're going to have your audition, and then you're going to come to a rehearsal. So you're going to come to one of our midweek rehearsals. That's your opportunity to kind of mingle with the worship team. You're going to see how we run practice. You're going to see how everything kind of flows together. You're going to understand how the importance of each little piece it's integral to making sure that everything is ready to go on a Sunday. So, there are so many different things that go into this that you as a worship leader and I as a worship leader have to understand. It's not just sit in your office, play guitar, worship Jesus. You do that. Don't get me wrong. You worship Jesus. You should be worshiping Jesus in everything you do. But there is so much more on the business end of things that you need to be aware of. We haven't even gotten into budgets. We haven't even gotten into financial anything. So that's a whole different baby. Making sure that you are prepared financially for if things arise with your budget and stuff like that. But if you guys have any questions or comments or anything, please leave me a message, and I'd love to hear back from you. Thanks for joining me. See you later.